So if you've already seen my walkthrough, I'm just gonna highlight some of the things that I did it before and give you more of a buyer's perspective, especially those of you who have never been out on the water on a kayak, some things you should look out for. Big shout out to Kayak City for lending us this LTE. I will have all of their information in the description below. If you're in Northern California, give them a shout. Go get your kayak gear and rigging there. They also do delivery. So they have this kayak in every single color. It's ready to go. This is my #1 kayak so far of 2025. So first off, pedal drive. The cool thing about the pedal drive is you do not have to register your kayak. You're going 3 to 5 miles an hour on this thing. You're cruising it. It's very light. It's easy to take on and take off. It is phenomenal. Pedal kayaks are what changed the game. You can go further. You can stay out on the water longer. You can troll with them. Just all around phenomenal. Some people say the pedal kayaks are dying off because everybody's going to motor, but I disagree. Pedal kayaks are still the #1 kayaks for an angler that's just going by themselves, or a kayaker that's just going by themselves, right? Or if you have somebody that's on the back or a dog on the back. The only downside to a pedal kayak is, yes, you do lose this room right here for your pedal, but what you get in return is just far surpasses everything else. You don't have to worry about charging batteries. You don't have to spend another $1,000, $2,000 putting a motor on the kayak and then registering it. You can go just as far. You can cruise the same speed, all with the pedal, and burn some calories doing it. And I haven't met any one of us in America that doesn't need to burn some calories. So that's there. But let's talk about some really cool features that come from actual anglers. So the forward-facing rod holder. Most rod holders on kayaks, you could care less. You could really care less. But the forward-facing rod holder, if I could only have one, this is what I would have. One, because when you're taking your fish off of your rod or you're re-rigging your rod, having that forward-facing rod holder comes in clutch, so clutch. The other thing is under the seat storage. Under the seat storage is very key. You even have a bungee strap that you can change up and down. You can put some accessories under here, but I can't tell you how much this is a game changer, because you can put multiple 3700 tackle boxes under here. You could have your terminal tackle. You could have the bait that you really are going to use constantly under here, and it is great. Now, again, as you guys know, if you've watched any of my other videos, I'm 6'4", 6'5", 250 at the moment, and when I put the seat all the way back, my legs are fully extended. However, my 9-year-old daughter can sit on here as well, move the seat forward, and still pedal this. So they did a really good job at making this kayak accessible for people of 90% out there on shapes and sizes. I think as far as the tall guys, once you start to get into about 6'7", this is going to be a little bit too small for you, maybe a little bit cramped. I can't imagine anybody being too small, because the rail for the seat goes all the way up here. So if, you know, a tiny 9-year-old girl who's, 3 foot something can do it, I'm sure anybody else can. As far as stability, now, on calm waters or definite little bit rough waters, nothing like this, standing up and fishing on this thing is an absolute ease. So I stood up on it out there in the lake in the middle of 1.5, 2 foot swells for just a second, and it was a little bit rocky. That's what I expect, right? I expect that. I was really impressed that I could still stand up and not feel like I was gonna full send into the water on this kayak. The scuppers were all in it. I just drained it out. As you can see, there's a lot of water on the ground, and that's because I was taking waves over the bow. So I have not opened this hatch up yet. Let's see if there's any water in it. Bone dry, guys. Bone dry. And yes, it does fit rods underneath there for storage and transportation. So, bone dry hatch, great in rough water, and 10 feet. Again, 60 pounds on that pilot. I can pick this thing up, put it over my head, and just throw it up there. If you're on a car, it's going to be even so much easier. But I really did not expect this kayak to be able to handle this. I expected me to come back and give it maybe like a 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10. But not once did I feel like I was going to flip out of the kayak. I didn't feel like I was going to fall out of the kayak. I even took some waves directly to the side of the kayak. And it just kept pushing and kept good stability. So I don't know what kind of magic Native did, but you know, I hope they keep this kayak at the same price. I still believe if people are actually be able to get on the water on this kayak, this Slayer LTE, it is going to be the best-selling kayak. This is the #1 kayak out on the market for somebody who's looking for a kayak. They don't need to take everything in the kitchen sink. They don't want to trailer a kayak. You know, they don't want all that added stuff on it, or especially for someone like me that loves a grab and go kayak, this thing is phenomenal. Lastly, and again, I'm not sponsored by Native, unfortunately. That would be awesome, but I'm not. All the Native stuff I buy with my own money. This thing also paddles well. So I was out there in the chop, and just to give you I know you probably really can't see it, but if I'm out there in that water and I don't pedal or paddle, I'm getting pushed between 2 to 2.5 miles an hour. And those waves are between 1 foot to 2 feet out there. There was some white caps out there earlier. So, and it handled it. So you can actually paddle this and pedal this kayak. And the only kayak that was a really good pedal-paddle combo before was the Hobie Compass. However, the Hobie Compass does not have nearly as much stability, and I would not take the Hobie Compass out in these conditions. So, again, I'm gonna take this out tomorrow. The next video is gonna be me rigging it up, me fishing with it, me putting the 16x16 in here, taking like 6 to 8 rods. The weather's supposed to be pretty bad tomorrow too, but we're gonna see. We're gonna load it up. I'm gonna take it out, try to get at least 6 to 8 hours worth of fishing. But I mean, there's no hesitation for me recommending this kayak at all. I think this handles 95% of what everybody's gonna want and need realistically. And Native really killed it. This is #1 for me. You know, this kayak keeps shocking me. So great colors. I really like this color scheme. Again, check out Kayak City. Their information is going to be in the description below. And if you haven't seen my walkthrough of this, I'll link that as well, but stay tuned for the next video. So got it rigged up. Got the fish finder that I'll tell you about in a second. Have the black pack, and now I'm going to grab the rods out of the front and put all the rods on there. But I made a goof. It happens. I left my electronics box at the house, so the battery for the fish finder is at home, and the battery for the chest camera is at home. It happens. We'll roll with it. Another thing that's pretty cool about this kayak for bigger guys is I can reach all the way into the back where the holder is for like your keys, the dry storage is. I could easily reach all the way back and grab the paddles. I can actually use the front hatch by easily just, you know, reaching up and opening it and closing it. So 100% of the kayak is actually usable on this Slayer LTE, even for me at my size, and the fact that I could stand up and it's stable, and the 400-pound weight capacity feels like it's underrated. Now, I'm not suggesting you defy that or go against, you know, what they're telling you that the kayak is rated for, but in the mini kayaks that I've been on, I feel like that is very conservative, based on the way that I felt that the kayak was fully rigged. Now, I didn't have a motor on it, which is going to add a little bit of weight. I didn't have a battery on it, which would add a little bit more weight. I know a lot of people are doing that, but for me right now, I'm kind of, and I have nothing against motors on kayaks at all. I've had motors on, if you've seen any of my videos, I have nothing against motors on kayaks. Just for me right now, I'm not using it, trying to get back to my ideal weight, shed some pounds. So the pedaling and paddling is for me. And then also I just like the ease and, you know, less stuff that you have to bring when you're kayaking, because, you know, right now I'm working 6 days a week, so, you know, when I can get out, I just want to be able to throw something on top of the car and go out there with not a whole lot of gear and still be able to have a stable, fun, good kayak. So the LTE does that in spades. You know, when I was standing up, sightseeing, fishing, even in weather, even in wind, using the paddle like I would on my SUP paddleboard, and getting into, you know, sub 8-inch water and little creeks that are back there, and kind of just doing some adventuring, worked great. I actually seriously paddled this thing for over an hour against the wind, against the current, into the wind with the current. It paddles phenomenally. Part of that is because it has a rudder. So it's the best paddling 10-foot kayak that I've been in that you could actually stand up in. Obviously, when you start getting into like 28-inch, 29-inch, 30-inch wide kayaks that are designed specifically just to sit and paddle, that's a different story. But as far as a sit-on-top 10-foot paddle kayak, this wins in spades. And then also the seat is high enough for me where I don't have to put seat risers on it. I could just stand right up and sit down, and it's still not a super high seat. So again, I know I keep saying it like I'm sponsored by Native or whatever, but guys, this is a unicorn kayak. It's just a unicorn kayak. It's amazing. It's phenomenal, right, for what it does. It's a Swiss Army knife. Now, if you're a guy that only fishes big water, you're doing tournaments, you want a bow mount and a rear mount, and you want all, you know, a bunch of extra stuff, then obviously this isn't the kayak for you. Could you put a rear motor on it? Of course you could. Could you put a bow mount motor on it? Of course you could. You know, if that's something that you wanted to do. I think the way the lid is positioned, you know, if you put a bow mount on this kayak, you're going to lose access to your front storage, at least while the bow mount's on there. I think it would probably be better for you to put, you know, a Torquedo or a Newport or something that's just on the rear, and then you could use either the hand rudder or use the foot pedal, you know, add foot braces, pedals in there, and then use those to steer as well if you wanted to. And then put some batteries back there as well. You do still have room even with the 16x16 back there. As far as under the seat, I was able to fit multiple 3700s and some other tackle boxes and a bunch of soft plastics on there today, all under the seat, all fine. I would obviously want to put some type of organization, you know, thing or attachment for underneath the seat. Just that's what I would do. But other than that, I really wouldn't make any other changes to this kayak. You know, and I'm a guy that likes to get a kayak and you know, just make it my own and you know, fix it up and add a bunch of attachments to all that stuff to really make it my own. There's really not much you have to do to this kayak at all, if anything. You know, put whatever crate you're going to use and just go. There's just not, I mean, usually I have so much more critiques, but guys, this kayak is the Swiss Army knife. It just is. It's the Swiss Army knife of kayaks that's out right now. You could take the drive out and paddle it all day long. If you want to take it in the river or in the creeks, you could then the next weekend put the pedal drive on and go out to big lake, big water. I have not taken this thing out on the ocean. I don't see why it would be an issue, obviously within reason of weather. Or any big water for that matter. Once you do start getting into the big water, because it does have the lower sidewalls, it's going to be a little bit more of a wet ride. The con of that, I guess, is it's a little bit more of a wet ride, but usually, you know, temperature isn't an issue unless it's in the winter, and then you have winter gear on, so today it didn't bother me at all. But the upside of that is you're not getting pushed around as much. Now, just like any other kayak, when the wind kicks up, you're going to get pushed around, but like when you're in that Hobie with that high sidewall, when you're in that Native, you know, tight necks with the high sidewall, those things are getting like, you're really moving when the wind hits you. especially if you're taller, especially if you're a bigger guy. And I'm just saying that for those of you who have not been on kayaks before. Just like in boats, when the wind picks up, you're gonna get pushed around. The kayaks sit they sit higher in the water and they're lighter, so they're more apt to get pushed around, which is why, you know, having a either pedal kayak where you can constantly just be sitting there moving the pedals slowly to keep yourself in position, which is very convenient, or some type of motor or some type of anchor if you really want to stay in one spot, is huge, because when the wind picks up, you're moving. There's just nothing you can do about it. I don't even care for you guys to say, oh, I got a skeg. That I've had them, I've used them, it helps a little bit, but let's be honest. If you're in a kayak and the wind picks up, you're moving. You need some type of something to keep you in place. Having a lower sidewall does reduce you getting just pushed around everywhere. Let's talk about some negatives. I gotta find some negatives on this kayak, and I'm nitpicking at this point. So the rudder could be a little bit bigger. It doesn't have to be, but if it was, that would be great. It turned tighter. It's not like this thing doesn't turn tighter, but I gotta find some negatives. So the rudder could be a little bit bigger. The steering could be a little bit tighter. It's, a little loose. It's nothing that's gonna bother you too much. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. It could have came with a hatch, a bucket for the hatch. That would have been nice. I probably wouldn't have used it, but it would have, maybe, yeah. Once you take your rods out, because I did have 5 or 6 rods stored under the kayak for travel, which was a plus. And then if you have a bucket there for, whatever, extra clothes, towel, TP, camera gear, whatever, having a bucket there that came with the kayak would have been nice. It's nothing you can't fix with a dry bag, just throwing something up there. So, yeah, I don't really have negatives on this one, guys. I really don't. It's light. I can throw it up top. I can put a pedal drive in it, and I could paddle it. And it's stable enough for me at, 6'4", 6'5", 250 to stand up and fish and paddle in not ideal conditions. What more can you ask for? Make it $1,200. There you go. If they did that, then I think other companies would be out of business. The other kayak that I'm looking for is a 2-seater, which with the, and here's just a rambling. This is just me kind of talking about the industry. So if you've watched this far, thanks. If you're gone, no worries. See you in the next one. But with Blvd and Native, under one umbrella, I could see it's a good thing financially, but it kind of sucks because I wish these two titans could have went against each other and really kind of made each other better. I think that if they didn't join forces, Native may have come out with a kayak that was strictly either for paddle or power, right? So it would have got rid of the pedal drive and it would have just had a flat deck, which they could do that with this Slayer LTE, which I think would be interesting for them because it would be cheaper, and then you would have that flat deck. So for those people who don't want to pedal, could just power it up and go, and those people who want a really good stable paddling kayak that's super light, this would be a phenomenal option. There's not really another option that's as stable as this that you can paddle. And what would the price be? $1,600, $1,500. I think that it would be a killer. It would be an absolute killer. But because Native and Blvd are under one roof, it's kind of like Native, you guys make the pedal drives, and then Blvd will make the powered and the paddle kayak. So and to Blvd stance, if they did it, they would have to come out with something, and I know they do have, but they would, what I mean, they'd really have to make a kayak that was specifically for pedaling, and then they would come out with their own drive and so forth and so on. I have to take back what I said about the 106 versus the LTE. I thought before, and this is why you got to get on the water, just on paper, the 106 does seem like it would be better for bigger guys. I wasn't too sure how the LTE would be for someone my size or a little bit bigger, just, you know, based on all the specifications on paper. When I get it out on the water, totally different. This is, I wouldn't say you would go too much bigger than me. You know, you could, you know, once you get into the 6'6", 6'7" range, it just depends on your torso and your legs. I have a 35, 36 inch inseam. I was fine, I could still do it, so take that into account. Once you probably get to about 280, you know, depending on your athleticism, and I don't say that just because I think you're gonna fall over one way or another. This kayak's gonna flip you, but I mean just as far as comfort of standing up and sitting down and moving around and feeling really comfortable in the kayak. Probably for a person that's north of 280 is when you would steer away from something like this. Which is why I say for most people from, I don't know, I think I said my 9-year-old daughter was 3 feet. That was a mistake. She's, you know, almost 5 foot or 5 foot, because her mom's 5'6", and she's like basically up to her neck. Here nor there. I think somebody that is 5 feet all the way clearly up into somebody who's 6'5", all the way possibly to 6'6", 6'7", fits in this kayak, could take this kayak out, and be comfortable and fish and have this kayak for years and years and years and years and years. So that was my rant. I wish that Bonafide and Native weren't under the same umbrella, because I think we would get some really cool kayaks coming out if those two were competing, but it is what it is. If I could only have 2 kayaks, this would be one of them. My other kayak would be some form of 2-seater, like the Crescent CK1 or the Crescent Crew. I know Jackson has like a tandem kayak too, but that seems to be really big. That's more of a trailer thing. And I do have a trailer in the garage. I'm probably gonna sell it, because again, I just want grab and go kayaks right now. Clearly the XTR would be an option, a fantastic option. The new canoe, either U10 or Unlimited, would be another option, for, you know, an added seat for a 2-person. So I would have this kayak and a 2-person kayak to take the kiddos, or the dog, from time to time. But yeah, this kayak is phenomenal. We'll see what else we're gonna get from Kayak City, guys. Remember, if you stayed this long, thank you very much. You know, shout out to Kayak City for allowing me to do this. Hopefully this will be a good relationship where I can just bring you a bunch of really good, honest reviews about these kayaks, how I feel about them, how they are on the water, with not just like me being on the water for 10 minutes, but a whole day fishing with them, rigging them up, taking them out, and letting you know, so you guys can make the best buying decision possible. All right, guys, thanks for staying. We'll see you on the next one.